Dr. Kephart, thank you for jumping on the podcast, Rural Education Leaders Podcast. Really excited to have you today. If you guys don't know Dr. Kephart, you are in for a treat. She is not only an amazing leader, multiple districts, and her leadership spans across Missouri education and beyond. But she's also an author, and she writes many books about adventure and about values for our children. And so we're going to get into this today. But Dr. Kephart, welcome to the Rural
Thank
Education
you.
Leaders Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Give us the quick, short version. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and also talk to us a little bit about Captain J and your work there as well.
So I have been in education for 26 years. I am currently the superintendent in the school district of Washington on the St. Louis side of the state, but my experience has been on the Kansas City side of the state. So after 5 years in this role in Washington, which I have loved, I am actually headed home. So my family and I are going back to Kansas City to a district that I have been in previously as the executive director of elementary ed. I will be the new superintendent in Liberty Public Schools. I'm very excited to be headed back to the Kansas City area. Certainly sad to be leaving Washington and all of the great work that has occurred over the time that I've been here. Proud of the work that Liberty has accomplished since I haven't been there in 9 years. Honored to be able to take over after Dr. Tucker and take Liberty into the future. From a personal standpoint, my personal and professional with Captain J get a chance to meet in the middle. I am a proud parent of an Air Force pilot, and I am also the proud wife of a pilot. My dad was also in the Army flying helicopters, as was my father-in-law. So aviation is something, while I am not a pilot, I can be on the radios with my husband or I take a nap. So while I'm not the pilot part of it, I do get a chance to interact with those in my family that this is their life and this is what they love. As a pilot's wife, I am often home by myself on weekends and evenings because he is gone about half of the month flying to some pretty cool places. So because of that, I just wanted an outlet to be able to have some creativity outside of that professional side of being a superintendent. So we have in Washington this event called Reading Night, and it brings the entire community together to talk about the importance and the excitement of reading. They always pick out a great book for me, but last year's Reading Night in April, I read a dog book, which is great. I love dogs, but I came back that evening. My husband had a tough flight, and I said, what would it be like? Do they have any Blue Jay books or any pilot books that would be fun to read? Or, hey, what about a Blue Jay pilot book? Nothing was there, but he was gone all weekend. So I started to research what it would be to write a book. That weekend, Captain J started to take some wings, per se. Over the course of the last year, I have written 12 Captain J books. The focus of Captain J and his friends have all been about the excitement of reading, character education, bringing in some of those leadership traits in each of the stories, but also talking about careers in aviation. I think it's so important for our students to be able to experience their career passions and interest prior to leaving high school. And my husband and I do some of that work in the school district of Washington around aviation careers. And so Captain J is one more aspect of that, more so from our earliest learners into our elementary age. So that's a short version of both where that personal and that professional intermix for me.
Okay, accomplished leader, superintendent, you've been all over both sides of the state, up in Kansas City, out in Washington. You're talking about having a creative outlet. How important is that for leaders who are in these roles of leadership? Having that creative outlet, not just something that you discovered for yourself, but how important that is it for leaders in general?
I don't think it's just about the creative outlet. What I have really enjoyed of learning how to write and publish a book all on my own is what we do as educators is we are all about learning and getting better and trying new things and taking risks and making mistakes and learning from all of those. And I feel like that is what I have done through the last year and still continue to learn. I really knew nothing about writing, publishing, and any of that aspect of book work. And so I have enjoyed what we ask of our kids and of our teachers, I've enjoyed doing that piece as well. And while I love going out to read Captain J, I have found that one of the most exciting things recently is I've been talking to our students about how to be an author and how you can be an author in today's age of being a self-published author and be able to have books in your hands, even of some elementary students that are writing their own books, illustrating their own stories. How can they do this too? I am not doing anything that others can't do. So I want to bring the message of being an author to others too. And part of that is the creative outlet, but part of that is sharing my story with others.
Wow, that's powerful. And it's funny you talk about trying, succeeding, trying, failing, learning. As a leader in multiple districts, what would you say one of the big things that you've learned is a hard way, but just something that you've learned that you would share with leaders? This is part of leading a district and also leading yourself.
For me, there have been many lessons. So to pick out one, it doesn't quite do it justice. But I would say for me, one of the biggest ones has been about urgency, that urgency does not equal clarity. And in our role, sometimes that urgency, things have to happen fast. So in the superintendency, in administration, how can we slow down some of the decisions that we have? How can we make sure that we are transparent with our communication and the communication is at the right time? There are things in our world that there has to be some urgency to, but at what time do you balance the urgency, the slowdown to make the right decision, and communicating as much and as often and as transparently as you can? Because in some cases, you can't say everything all at once. I would say that's a lesson. I happen to pull one of the books. The second book in the series is about Captain J and the rushed takeoff, because it is what we do. We want to move, we want to go, and sometimes we also need to slow down.
The ability to slow things down, to take them in, not just to react. That can be a real temptation for many superintendents. I'm thinking about leadership as you're talking, and you're also talking about kids as leaders. You're talking about the future of leaders and our role as superintendents. And you believe in that. Why do you believe in the future of Missouri public education, and why do you believe in leadership?
I would say at the core of who I am as a professional in education and in public education, it is about both of those. It is about building leaders for tomorrow, because we know that sometime someone's going to take my job and I want them to be in the best spot they can to be most successful. In Washington, someone's taking my job come July 1 and she will do a great job. But I want to build our students as leaders for tomorrow in whatever profession and civic responsibilities they take. So that starts even in our early learning center. And I see opportunities that our staff, our teachers are giving students to be leaders. You walk in our elementary, middle, and high school, and students are leading other students, whether it be in activities, whether it be in family time, whether it be in building-wide activities. I think it's so important to create that strong character education foundation that builds leaders. I think one of the gifts that Missouri public education has is opportunities and experiences for students. Through my time in Kansas City with real world learning, and now how that has moved to the St. Louis side of the state into Springfield and throughout the state, it really is about preparing our students for life after high school and seeing them in aviation, but in education and engineering and the trades. And how do we as public educators give those opportunities to students? And as we're at the risk with Jeff City and funding cuts and all of the things are harming public education, do you know that we're creating the leaders of tomorrow because of the experiences and the opportunities we're able to give them? That happens because of our business partners and those in our community that give our students experiences. So I'm a big proponent of character education and of giving students those real world experiences.
I'm listening to you. I'm just getting so excited to think about the kids in your community in Washington, the kids and the students in Liberty, the kids in my community in Everton and in rural schools. And I love what you're saying. It's about opportunity. It's about access. It's about giving kids these experiences outside of what they normally would have. And Jennifer, what I'm really hearing you talk about is hope. I'm hearing you talk about a bright future for Missouri and for Missouri education.
Agreed. Agreed. And that hope comes because of our communities. We have a program in Washington called Connect Washington, and it's about giving students those experiences for their workforce passion and interest life after high school, but it happens because of our business partners. We are an amazing business partner. So we now have 3 apprentices in our teaching careers class. As a district, we are hiring our own students to give them those experiences. So when we're talking about some of the school districts that may not have all of the business partners that we happen to have, where can you look for those experiences for students? Can it be virtual? Can it be a school district? Because we have not only teaching, but maintenance and buildings and grounds and food service and financial services. And those opportunities for students are just so powerful. And I'm excited about continuing to find ways to connect students across the state with what they want to do next.
We deal with realities, right? We deal with the things that are coming towards us that we can't control. Jennifer, to the leader that's really facing some of those realities, maybe in rural education where the pie gets smaller and smaller, or maybe some of those access points aren't there, for that leader who's struggling with hope, for that leader who's struggling with joy, what would you say to them right now in this time, in this season of the cycle of education?
I think we have to remember it is a cycle of education. There is an ebb and flow in education. And while I don't like, we will return, but we can't do our work in a silo. And we have to remember that the core of what we do is about growing students. And we do that really well every day across the state. And we can't lose sight of that. What does it look like from an academic standpoint? What does it look like from a next step career standpoint or character education standpoint? All of those can continue to happen no matter what happens in Jeff City. However, we may have to be a little bit more creative. We can't do that creativity alone. We have to be able to work together as superintendents. It's a lonely job, and we have to make sure that it's not a lonely job because there are 500 plus of that do it across the state. How can we leverage our expertise to be able to continue this fight for public education?
And what I'm hearing you say is it starts at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. It starts with students in the core of what your message is. Let's talk a little bit more about Captain J. What you talked a little bit about what your hope was to accomplish. What's some of the feedback that you've been getting, and you feel like that is really your mission is being accomplished?
With Captain J, early on, it was really about me. It was really about writing stories that I could be able to share. And what it has turned into is stories and pictures that kids love. I love reading in classrooms. I always have as an educator, and I have always found books that have some type of lesson and have really good pictures. So that has been my focus when I've gone in classrooms. Now I get to bring my own book, which I believe have both of those. And so it's been fun to be in classrooms talking about the lessons that Captain J goes through with his friends. But then it also has been fun. It's been fun to talk about some of the joys that as an author, I get to put into those stories. So I shared with my husband being a pilot. One of the books is called Captain J Gear Down. That happened to be a flight that my husband had. He was taking passengers up and the gear did not retract like it should. So they took the passengers back down. They had an emergency landing, obviously safe because the gear was down. But once it doesn't go up, you don't try again. That book is all about he had to then fly it to have maintenance. It's important that when we look at the stories that we share, that even though there's maintenance and we have to slow down and we have to be patient, that's an important part of the work that we do too. I think it's so important that girls see themselves as pilots and as aviators. So while Captain J happens to be a cute little blue jay boy, I also think that it's important to have Gigi, who is a cardinal. So Gigi joins him on many of the stories, and Gigi happens to be named after my grandmother, who we would call Gigi, and loved cardinals. So anytime I see a cardinal, I think of my grandmother. So it's fun to have lessons with the two of them. Their first book together is that Captain J flies with Gigi. They're flying in the mountains, and Gigi is comfortable with the mountains. She knows what's going on, but Captain J isn't. And so he has to rely on his friends to be able to make a successful landing. They make the landing inside a valley in mountains that whips around the wind and the snow. That happens to be the Aspen runway that my husband lands on quite frequently. And it's a little bit of a treacherous runway to land on. So it's been fun to add in those pieces. There's one on going to the islands. There's one on Curious Adventure that is about finding a cenote. We went to Mexico, and that was my favorite part of Mexico. So all of those stories, I get to bring in a little bit of me. That's been fun to share with students. I talk about the Easter eggs throughout the books, so I'll share those Easter egg moments with students.
I totally agree. We need to continue to tell those powerful stories for all of our students. When we looked up your books online, my little girl, 7 years old, was like, wow, I can't wait to read these stories. They look fun, they look inviting, but we need to pass those messages, right? Hey, these are opportunities out here and you can do those things.
She has the
Hey,
Gigi book coming,
all
so on its
right.
way.
She's excited about it. They look amazing. If you haven't had a chance to get your hands on them, please go support these powerful books. We like to keep things simple and practical. What would you say is important to keeping the main thing without it getting hijacked by urgency?
Keeping it simple, we have to remember to breathe. Sometimes we have to pause and reflect and breathe because so often we get caught in the speed, and that goes to the urgency and clarity. We get caught up in things that impact us daily. We have to remember to breathe and sometimes remind others when they see us breathe, hopefully they remember.
It's great advice. I took a deep breath as you were saying that because this time of year, right? This time
Yes,
of year,
yes.
things can get so fast and quick. And if we buy into that, we contribute as leaders, and that impacts our culture. So, what would you
Done.
say as you're looking into your new opportunity, even thinking about new superintendents you're going to have opportunities to mentor here, one strategy that builds trust and helps people build a unified culture?
Being visible with our staff, being visible with our kids. We have kids doing such amazing things in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And being able to interact with our students is one of my favorite things to do. And getting out of the office and being in classrooms is so important. It's important from the student standpoint. It's important from the staff standpoint. It's important from the community standpoint because parents in the community see you when you are out engaged with our students outside of school and even inside of school. It shows that you care. It takes that moment to breathe when you get a chance to interact with kids doing the good work of school. And so it brings that clarity and focus, I think, by being out in our community.
Doing the good work of school. But Jennifer, what I hear you saying is it's not programs that make a difference in education, it's people.
We talk a lot in our leadership team about relationships and engagement. If I were to say what are the golden nuggets of really humanity and interacting with each other, it is about relationships and engagement. If you can have strong relationships and if you can engage them in the work you're doing, for us, it's the work around school. But if you can engage people in the work that you're doing, you've got them and you now are empowering others to be great. And I think that is our work as a superintendent. It's empowering others to be in the next seat, to take the work that is happening across the district and making sure that it is at the top level that it can be and holding those expectations for our staff. And that comes with being there in the work with them, relationships and engagement.
Stewardship
Yes.
is that ability to look beyond yourself as a leader and look into the future and make sure something's ready to go for the next person.
And supporting them along the way. I want to be the person that people call, and the first thing when I answer the phone is, how can I help you? My work of a superintendent is to help clear the way for you to be successful in your role. What can I get out of the way so to ensure that our kids remain the top priority for every role in our district?
We've covered a lot
We
today.
did.
If you could talk to the kid reading your book, what's the things you would want them to know after reading your stories?
I want them to know that reading is so critically important for their own growth. Through reading, they can see what career pathways they might want to experience. They can get lessons in life. Reading takes you to places that you never thought you could go or see. You can also create those stories too. Reading is the core of all of the work that we do and the future success that our students are going to see. And with Captain J, I wanted to create those moments that reading is fun and you get to learn a couple of things along the way.
We will have the links to your books in our
Great. Thank you.
description for this. Jennifer, how can people stay connected to you? What can they do to make sure that they're following along with Captain J, but also be inspired by you as a leader here in the state of Missouri?
Absolutely. So, Captain, you can find Captain J at captainjbooks.com. They're also all on Amazon. So, either way, and that's probably the easiest way to stay connected with me too. I want to help our new superintendents. I want to help new leaders. I want to help experienced superintendents. We're all doing this together. Sometimes, even those that have been in the role for a while feel new, depending on what the experience is. So, please reach out to me. I want to be able to be that thought partner and a collaborator for the great work that is happening. And whether it's how do I write my own book, because I'm working with a couple of leaders throughout the state that want to write their own story. I want to be that help as well. So whether it's from a personal standpoint or a professional standpoint, I am here to support the work that we all get to do every single day.
We truly need each other, don't we? And the
Yep.
reality is, like, whether you're in for your first year or you're in for your 100th year, there's always something new that we're learning in this role.
Oh,
Hey, last question, the way we end all of our episodes, but in rural communities, you're driving on a highway and usually there's a billboard on the side of the road, right? And those billboards have very unique messages, everything from crazy stuff to really sincere stuff. Jennifer, as we drive on the road to finishing this episode, what does your billboard say to folks?
I'm going to say that it is Captain J's motto that is at the beginning and the end of every single book. And I think it represents the work that we get to do as leaders. And it's fly higher, fly further, on to the next adventure. And that's what we do.
Jennifer, thank you so much for your time and the work that you're doing as a superintendent, but also this work you're doing as an author to help children and families and students. It's so significant. We really are glad you joined us today on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for learning a little bit more about Captain J and his friends as well. So for you, fly higher, fly further.